Just the way that you set up your supplies and your reference materials can have a huge impact on your work. So today I'm going to discuss the best practices when you're working from photos, both with setup and with techniques, and how to seamlessly transition these same practices when you're working from life. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is another video in my series about working from photos versus working from life. And in this video, what I'm going to share with you is the best way to set up your canvas, your paper to draw on, whatever it is that you're using, and your reference photos to make that whole process easier. So it's both to make the process of working from photos easier, and if you also work from life, how to use the same setup when you're working from life so that it's a seamless transition back and forth. This is going to help you do better work from photos, and it's going to help you feel more comfortable when you get in front of the model and you get the opportunity to work from life. If you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe and push the bell to receive notifications so that you will know when I make new videos. So let's get into it. Our purpose here is really to reduce the amount of mechanical action that we need to take in order to observe and create our drawing, and also to reduce the amount of memory time that we need to utilize in order to create the drawing. So first of all, I highly recommend working at an easel. If you're working on something really small, it's not a big deal to work on a flat surface, but once you get any sort of dimension to what you're working on, there's going to be some distortion as the paper or the canvas or whatever is moving away from you. So go ahead and get an easel. I can make a couple of recommendations for that, even if you have a small space. It may feel a little weird at first working at an easel because there's some fine muscles and motor skills that we don't really use in any other area of our lives, but you'll get used to it before you know it, and it's really helpful in terms of being able to look at what you're working on and get some more accuracy. Number two is we want to get our reference and our image that we're painting or drawing as close as possible to one another. All drawing is done from memory. I don't know if you ever had that feeling like you looked at something or you looked at someone or a picture and you went to draw it and immediately it's like you didn't know what you were supposed to do and what you were supposed to draw. It can actually be really difficult to hold on to just the image of a line or shading or something for even a split second. So that's the first thing that we want to do, is reduce the space from our reference to what we're working on. Now what I'm showing behind me is a setup for somebody who is right-handed. That would be me. If you're left-handed, I just want you to flip everything around. The reason that I do this is because if I reversed it and I put my reference on the right-hand side, I could be covering up the photograph while I'm working on the painting. And what I really want is to be able to clearly see my reference material at the same time that I'm working. So here I was giving a demonstration during one of my classes over the weekend, and what I have is the image on the left-hand side because that's not my dominant drawing side, and then as close to it as possible I have my painting that I was working on. So this means that when I'm looking from my reference over to my picture, there is the least amount of space possible. The goal here is to be able to see the reference and the painting without having to move my head. So sometimes what I see people do is maybe they'll put a sketchbook in their lap and then look up at a picture and go back and forth. And that's a lot more memory time, and you never actually see what you're drawing and you're drawing at the same time. So it's really difficult to make a comparison. Whereas here, when I stand directly in front of the painting and the photo, I can just look back and forth, and actually I don't even need to move my head. I can just flick my eyes back and forth and see each one right next to each other. You want to sit or stand so that the center of your body is about at the division between your reference material and your artwork. And you want to stand at least far enough away that you can completely extend your arm with your hand kind of 90 degrees like this without hitting your reference or your painting at all. This way you can take measurements if that's what you're doing, or you can sight some angles, whatever technique it is you want to use. You have enough room to do that, and you can still be close enough to paint or draw or touch the surface however you need to, but just make sure that you can extend your arm and have plenty of room to make your measurements. A lot of times I see students that will get like really close and they start hitting their easel like this, and maybe they'll try and like sight an angle, and then they have to pick it up and move it over here, and it's just kind of awkward. Or I'll see people doing this sort of a thing, like back here to make a measurement, and it just makes it less precise. It makes it less consistent because the distance from your body to the artwork can change again and again. So just find a comfortable place back here. If you need to get up close later for the details, when you're all done with your measuring, you can do that and get really close. Just try and give some distance. Now, this setup that I've done with the printed photo can be really easily translated to any other reference. Just simply move your canvas or paper or whatever over to the edge of your drawing board, and directly beside it put your laptop or your iPad, or if you're working from life, just set yourself up so that over that left-hand side of the easel, reverse that if you're left-handed, you would be looking at your model or your landscape or whatever it is that you are drawing or painting. Now that we've gone over how to set up our references, easel, and materials, I want to talk a little bit about methods to use when working from life. If your goal is really just to work from photos and copy photos, and you're not really trying to learn how to draw in a variety of situations, then probably you can just do whatever you want. But if your goal is really to understand how to draw so that you can start to draw from memory, or you can start to draw in other kind of impromptu situations, like you're at the zoo and you see an elephant and you want to draw it, if you want to know how to work from life and you want to be just more in control of your artwork, then my biggest recommendation is only use from photographs techniques that you can employ in other situations. So here's what I mean. A lot of people ask me, is it cheating if I work from a grid off of a photograph? Or there will be some similar questions like, is it cheating if I trace or use carbon paper, etc., etc.? And my answer is that you're not necessarily cheating, but you might be cheating yourself. That sounds really bad, but if you get used to working from a grid when you're working from photographs, but then you want to go into a life drawing situation and work without a grid, then you're kind of cheating yourself if you practice from photos using a grid, because it's not helping to build your skills in these other situations that you want to be successful in. So I recommend just taking that into consideration and use methods that you can employ when working from life. This is going to help you build your skill set while you're working from photos, so that when you do get in a situation working from life, or you want to do something out of your head or whatever, that's going to be helping you in those situations instead of holding you back. For example, you can see here on the reference photo that I was using in my workshop this weekend, there's kind of a weird box around the face, and I was using this to show my students how I use angle sighting in order to make measurements, whether I'm working from a photo or I'm working from a model. Whatever the situation is, I look for some kind of basic block-in like this. It'll be 8 or less lines, all straight lines, and what I try and do is assess the angle of them. So obviously I can't literally draw in the air in front of a model or a landscape or whatever situation I want to draw, but drawing these straight lines on here really helps you to understand the structure of what you're looking at from a photo, so that when you're working from life, you can imagine that structure over the top of what you're looking at. So you start to move more seamlessly back and forth and continually build your skills in both situations. Another idea is just taking measurements or using site size. Site size, if you don't know what it is, it's basically just taking a literal measurement of the width of something, the height of something, and translating that over. So your drawing or painting is going to be the exact same size as what you're looking at. A lot of artists use this as their primary or even only method of creating artwork. So they may do this from 2D references and from life. So if you want to follow that path and you want to create site-size paintings all the time, then this is going to be great for you. But just keep in mind, if you're relying on absolute literal measurements when you're working from photos, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to transition if you're in situations working from life that you can't take literal measurements or you just don't have the time. Hopefully this video has gotten you thinking about your setup when you're working from photos and whether or not that's helping you or hindering you. My next video is going to be about things to consider when you are working from life and the unique challenges that situation poses. So come back for that one. If you haven't seen my videos about the pros and cons of working from photos and the pros and cons of working from life, check the links below. If you found this useful, please go ahead and give me a like and subscribe and hit the little notification bell so that you can be reminded every week when I release a new video.